Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, I have some bad news.
No.
This wealthy guy in town wants to knock down all our houses and build a country club. But I may have a solution to save us.
What is it?
I think there's a buried treasure or like a ship.
Are we in the Goondocks?
We are in the Goondocks, and we're going to talk about the Goonies.
Yes, finally.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
And can we talk about?
What do you want?
Lots of water.
4 waters. Is that all?
No. I want the Villa Scallopini. I want a fettuccine Alfredo. A bottle of fettuccine in 1981.
The only thing we serve is tongue. You boys like tongue?
Can we talk about the Goonies?
I love the Goonies. Probably my favorite movie as a kid. Easily.
This is the movie that raised me.
Yeah.
I would say that this is the movie that like instilled that sense of adventure that anything is possible when you're a little kid. And do you feel like it has we actually just talked about this. Your son has seen the Goonies and loves it as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it transcends generations.
Yeah. I can't imagine a kid who doesn't love this movie. It's just because you know what it is. It's to start off a little bit too. The movie starts off and like obviously like you know the kids have parents and you definitely see them at the end of the movie, but for the most part, it's a synopsis of like what you always talk about, like that latchkey kid kind of mentality of like the 80s and 90s, where these kids are out on their own adventures. You know, like mom and dad are at work, completely oblivious to the world. And these kids are out having their own adventures. And this is the biggest adventure.
Like of all time. It probably solidified my view that like you can find treasure anywhere. I just feel like that was such like innately in every kid growing up in the late 80s, early 90s that like there's treasure abound everywhere. Like there's treasure in your yard. There's treasure in the creek behind your house. There's treasure everywhere. Yeah. And this movie made me like, duh, I was right.
Yeah.
But okay, so I've rewatched it we do.
Yeah.
The whole synopsis of how this movie starts and why this adventure starts is because all of their homes are being foreclosed on and they're trying to save their parents' homes. I totally forgot that dark piece of information.
Did you really?
Like, I think I just focused on I don't know. I just remember I was rewatching it. I was like, oh my God, this is so much darker than I remembered. A lot like it was for me with Ferris Bueller's. It was just so much darker than I remember.
Well, I mean, we grew up in that HBO kind of generation too. So like when this was on TV, you just kind of turn it on. You don't watch it on VHS necessarily. And so you just start the movie where you turn the TV on. And there's a lot of movies I have that are like that, where I almost like forgot the beginning. And like, and what's crazy too is rewatching this. I forget what the actual like time is as far as like when you get there, but I was almost astounded by how much time like the beginning of the movie is before they even get on their bikes and kind of begin the adventure. Because as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna get past that part. I'm gonna get to the fun part where they're like having an adventure. But the part at Mikey's house and everything is like a good 20-25 minutes of of the movie. Like it's a lot of time they spent at the house too. But I love the scene.
You perfectly explained that, because I remember again when I was rewatching it, I was like, I thought like the party happened a lot sooner. Like I thought this was a blip. But like the whole way that they even open the fence for Chunk when he's down there after they get him to do the truffle shuffle, and it like, the thing drops and there's like all these, elaborate like mousetrap. They essentially have mousetrap to even open the gate. That is a long scene for what it does. Just like I'm watching it. I remember like even now I'm like, this is so cool. How did they even think of this? But I remember as a kid watching, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty long scene. Just that whole one little section is, you'd think it's a 10-15 second blip. No, that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's funny too is like the entire, like, so when the kids are sitting there and they're kind of mourning what's about to happen, they start going out up to the attic and they play around on the attic, and like just the genesis to how we get to the restaurant on like the weird. Like, and that's the thing too, is I've been to the West Coast. I've been to Oregon. Like the setting for like a restaurant in the middle of nowhere on the top of like a cliff almost is so alien to me, even to this day. But just like the kids going out and doing that. And obviously like, you know, Josh Brolin in there, who's like super, I mean, he's still a teenager. He's older than the other kids, but Josh Brolin and, you know, his whole shtick with like watching his kids and getting tied up. And the beginning of the movie is often overlooked, but it's an interesting, I don't know, like it's a little time capsule of like the 80s and like,
oh yeah, it lays so much groundwork. Yeah. I agree. And you know, it's funny you bring that up because I think we forget, like we talk about how legendary the Goonies is. Like, let's backtrack really fast. If you haven't seen the Goonies, I can't help you. I can't, we're not going to talk about, you know, usually where we talk about what this is. Like, if you haven't seen the Goonies, your childhood was a farce. You need to redo it. Just watch the Goonies, heal your inner child. Yeah. But there's so much that I felt watching it. Like it truly brings you back. Like I remember the exact way I felt first watching this movie. It's one of those movies like Home Alone. Yeah. We talked about that. Like I feel like a little kid in the early 90s again when I'm watching it.
You know, what's funny is out of all the kid movies we've covered on this and like we've, you know, just in our brains of being, you know, millennials or I'm a Xennial and all that's a whole other conversation. But like from that generation.
Really? In only 2 years, I'm a millennial and you're a Xennial?
Well, Xennials is all right. We'll pause for a second. A Xennial is like that bridge generation, and the difference is like I started elementary school and we were learning on like I learned how to type on a typewriter before I went to a computer. Before like by the time I graduated high school, we were like on Windows like PCs.
Okay,
like I was like, I
mean, I'm only 2 years younger than you, right?
Of floppy disks. Yeah, but it was like a bridge generation. But like how big a floppy disk? So a 5.5 or
we had the big ones and then we had the smaller ones. Yeah. And I remember like saving a paper in 5th grade to a floppy disk and then having to bring it to school to print it. And then like tearing off the perforated circle edges of the school printer.
Maybe you're also
very satisfying. No, yes, I don't want to be a Xennial. I want to be a millennial. I don't want to be anything. Who am I kidding? We've gotten such a raw fucking deal. I don't want to be any of it. I want to be a boomer so I can buy a house.
Xennials are like this little micro generation. Like millennials, we like, you know, because being a Xennial, you're also kind of a millennial, but you're a part of like this little bridge generation. But
okay, yeah,
Xennial, millennial, whatever. Like it's you know, we're all part of the same group.
Let's see what this is. Okay. I missed it. Yeah. Xennials are the micro generation of people on the cusp of Generation X and millennials. Yeah. They said that it's from 76 to 85. That's not me. Yeah. You made the cut. Yeah. I missed it.
I made the cut just by the skin of my teeth. But the difference with Xennials is just we had this like weird bridge of like life and technology. Like our childhood was similar to Generation X. And then by the time we like grew up a little bit and got to high school and graduated, like we were like a part of like what the millennial generation knows. So it was weird. Like it was like a weird transitional generation just saw technology change.
I feel akin with you though. I feel like there's I've got a little foot in the Xennial generation. I'm 87, so I definitely missed it. But I mean, I still had to research with Encyclopedia Britannica and use the Dewey Decimal System in the library.
Yeah. We went from Encyclopedia Britannica to Encarta, which no one the hell remembers, to Wikipedia.
I remember Encarta. Oh my gosh. I remember my mom bought that for the home computer and it was like, we could do anything.
I remember I was listening to Mozart on it. I was like, wow, we're listening to music on the computer.
Oh my God.
I was listening to a little clip of Mozart.
We're old.
But to bring it back, I was going to say this movie came out in the summer of 85. So it's around those years. But the thing that sticks out to me as like a film nerd is this is like the trifecta of movies, and especially for like the 80s. You have the stories by the stories by Steven Spielberg. The screenplay was Chris Columbus.
It was
Harry directed Potter. By Richard Donner. Like, and so I think you put all those little things together and you get why
magic.
Yeah, because even as you mentioned, like Home Alone, right? If you think about like other kids' movies from our generation, this is one that is so broad. There is such a, like, Richard Donner built a world in this. I give him so much credit. This is the guy who did Superman. Like,
yeah.
he built in this entire world where, like, I was amazed, and to this day I'm sort of amazed, but again, it's because of that trifecta of Spielberg, Columbus, Donner, that there was never a sequel to this. Because I was like, even growing up, I think it was like on the original Nintendo, that there was like it was like the Goonies 2. It was a sequel to the Goonies, but it was only in a video game format. Which I thought was kind of odd, but
yeah. And we talked about books went on that they had like books where the story continued.
Yeah.
Where like Sloth eventually gets adopted by Chunk's family and they throw him a
That's
bat
right.
mitzvah.
You told me about that.
Yeah. Like the story has continued, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things that it was just, and you probably know this better than I do, but so this was Spielberg's idea, right? Like he had the idea for this. Mm-hmm. And then Chris Columbus, he fleshed out the screenplay, right? Kind of. All right. Yeah. And he was just coming off Gremlins.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like nobody else could have done this the way that they did. Like the brain of Chris Columbus. First of all, we have to do Gremlins because that to me is like one of the best movies of all time. Whole series. I'm obsessed with it. But I don't think anyone else could have done this the justice it did. And maybe it was just so fucking perfect.
Yeah.
That they were like, this sequel would kill it. And the kids blew up. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't little actors after this. Most of them went on to just explode after this, which is insane. Like, if you think about the people in this, which we'll talk about, but I mean, Josh Brolin alone, this was his acting debut. He'd never acted before.
I didn't know that.
This was it. This was the first thing. Not a commercial, not a single freaking thing. Wow. This was it.
Do you know how he came about it? Like, how did he get like just randomly cast, or?
I don't know. I don't know if he had to audition or not. But I mean, he's about as good as it gets. I think he's like the epitome, just seeing him, what an 80s older brother he was with the bandana and the cut off sweatshirt. And like, he's so perfect. And he's got like the little handsome older brother face in the 80s. Yeah, he's so perfectly cast. Him
riding the little girl's bike is just so burned into my memory. I mean, his romantic interest, Andy, who was Carrie Green. I had such a crush. I mean, she was in all the different movies in the 80s that she was in. Like, she always tended to play a very similar character. She was like the girl that, like, sort of the nerd outcast, whoever had a chance to like.
She was the attainable hot girl. Yeah.
Yes. That was in Lucas. She was in Summer Rental. Which
oh my God, Lucas was you just brought me back. What a mind fuck. Oh, you just brought me back.
Oh yeah.
She was older, right? So by the time that I was watching this movie, I was probably, like, full disclosure, my parents didn't give a shit what I watched at all. So I was probably like 5-6 years old watching this on TV, which some of this stuff is a little intense for a 5 or 6 year old. But she was like the girl that when you're watching this, you're like, that's who I want to be in high school.
Yeah.
I want to be that. She's so pretty and she doesn't try.
Yeah.
She's so cool and she doesn't try. Lucas. Oh, what a movie.
But she wasn't in a lot of stuff. I feel like she disappeared from like acting real quick.
Well, let's see. Let's see what our girl's been in. Yeah, she did. That was, she sure did.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, maybe
she came back and she did Belly Fruit. What the fuck is that?
She was co-writer and director. So there you go.
Belly Fruit?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Well,
hey,
now I've got to watch it.
Is written and co-written and directed by Carrie Green. It's interesting.
I did read somewhere that Spielberg had so Josh Brolin got this role and then he got like very weird on set because he was obsessed with this like certain acting method, and Steven Spielberg had to be called in to like rein him in.
Oh no.
Rein him in because he got like hold on, I have it in my notes. He was reading about
He wasn't method acting.
The Stanislavski, method of acting while he was on set. And so he got weird. He got weird on set.
Oh no.
So they had to.
It's sad too. Cause, Succession is running, the final season is running as we're recording this.
Yeah.
And so much has come out about, what's his name from Succession,
who's just too methody for the methody.
Yeah. Apparently Jeremy Strong is a method actor and Brian Cox is like, I'm fucking done with it. Like just, I'm fucking sick of the method acting. It's my Brian Cox impression.
This is pretty good. There's a quote where Spielberg says, and I originally heard this on Josh Brolin was being interviewed. So he knows that he was weird. So he says the Spielberg he went up to Spielberg and said, how about I climb the walls of the tunnels and that will represent me climbing out of my mother's womb. Spielberg said, why don't you just act?
Yeah.
So he got a little weird.
Yeah. But to go back to what you were saying too, we'll get back to Chunk for a second, but you look at the rest of the cast, right? You have Sean Astin, you have Corey Feldman, Ke Huy Quan, which is, by the way, just to be clear, is the reason this one came up because he won his Oscar.
He won his Oscar with our boy Brendan Fraser, and oddly enough, Chunk, Jeff Cohen, is Ke Huy Quan's attorney. He is an attorney to the stars. Yeah, they're all still best friends. Crazy. And he is his attorney, and they are all still buddies. Wow. And it's the cutest thing in the entire world.
But wait, to keep going, by the way, right? You have Kerry Green, Martha Plimpton, Joe Pantaleones, Pantaloons. I always do that. Anne Ramsey, who was the throw mama from the train. You know, like she was
Mama
just
Fratelli.
staple of random 80s movies. And then Robert Davi, who was Jake, who I don't know what else he was in, actually, now that I think about it. But he was like another face that like just popped up constantly in the 80s, right?
Yeah, he was in Die Hard.
That's where he was. Okay, I was going to say, he was,
License
no relation.
to Kill,
right?
Die Hard, and Expendables 3.
Yeah. So he was like one of those like character actors from the 80s and 90s, obviously. But it's just such a great like movie. And then of course there's Sloth, which I feel like there was a story behind. He was a football player.
Yeah. His name's John Matuzek. John Matuzek.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a football player, and he was on the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders.
Did he?
And that's why Sloth wears a Raiders shirt in the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was going to say, did he act in anything else?
He played Tonda in Caveman 4 years before the Goonies, and he entered the World's Strongest Man competition 7 years prior to the movie, placing 9th.
He was also in One Crazy Summer?
Don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know he was in One Crazy Summer, but okay. It's also hard to see him because, the makeup was so intense that you don't even notice who, like, if you see his actual face to just like think like, all right, that's Sloth. It's like, yeah, that's two different people. That's not the same person whatsoever. It's hard to lock on there.
So he is, I feel like you can, okay, this is going to get meta. It's not meant to be, but like, I feel like I could judge the type of person that I wanted to be friends with on whether they thought that Sloth was the best character in Goonies or not. Like, if you didn't have a special place in your heart for Sloth and think that he is like adorable and sweet and want to save him and be like that kind of person, you're not my kind of person. Like, I should have known I was going to spend my life rescuing dogs because I stray little dogs that nobody loves, because I loved Sloth and I just thought he was so cute and just, I wanted to hug him and make him my friend. He just wanted love, and he just, it'll make me cry.
He was
it's just so sad.
Mama dropped you. Like, just,
Seriously, when I rewatched it, I was so emotional. I was like, that poor baby just needed a better mommy and daddy. He is so, and he still had so much love to give, even though his family was so awful to him.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about the movie too, is like, obviously any movie is going to have, like, you have your protagonists, right? You have the, you know, the drive for like what they're running away from the whole time. Mm-hmm. But at the same time too, like, you know, Sloth is like this scary thing. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, actually he's not that bad. And then you have the Fratellis who were just like fumbling over each other. So like, they're like silly bad guys, right? Like,
I feel like that's like the flesh out these words for me, but like that's the recipe to 80s movies. There has to be a scary guy who you learn is not so scary, like the guy in Home Alone, and the old man. There was always the bird lady. Like there was always somebody that seemed so much scarier, but once you got, you know, down and dirty with it, you realize that really it's just a sweet, happy guy. Is it just like a signature of Chris Columbus characters? Then I mean, maybe is that what it is? Voldemort didn't do great for him.
It's a little different, yeah,
a little bit different.
Oh, but actually, wait, no, in the same vein.
Okay.
Who in the Harry Potter franchise do you think is bad and turns out to be good?
Sirius Black, and those are the movies that he. Okay, no, I think he's out by the third one, right? He just did the first and two.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Okay, but yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, but and then just like were you into like, and we've talked about this too because like there is some stuff I can't get into. What's that show I said my wife likes?
Which one?
Outlander. Like things that are like,
we've talked about this.
Yeah. Like I can't get into like certain
soul.
Like,
that's a problem.
Mystical or what fantastical kind of settings and things.
Okay. So when you watched this movie as a child, I saw it as my opportunity to dive into the fantasy world. You probably saw this as, wow, they have all this money now. They're going to be able to buy so much stuff. And I'm like, there's a magical ship under the ground. If I just look into this cave here, I could find one myself.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think the reason it works for me is because their adventure is in modern times, even if the thing they're chasing after is this like thing from the 1600s, which is fine with me. But
because it's all still real life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. It's still real life. It's not like the thing, and it's plausible, right? I mean, I think you even as a kid, or I should say, even as an adult looking at it, there's nothing about it that's like, oh wait, you have to suspend belief way, way too much. I mean, there's a few things here and there, but
that's interesting.
I feel like a rule in movies is it's okay to suspend belief a little bit here and there. But if you're asking me to suspend belief for like a big plot point or like the main point of the movie, like, you know, we don't have to go down this road, but speaking of Spielberg, what was the last Indiana Jones movie?
The one that just came out?
The one that came out, like the last one to come out in like the 2000s.
Isn't one coming out this year?
Yes. Yeah. I'm talking about,
I don't remember what it's called.
It was the one with Shia LaBeouf, the crystal Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
The skull one. Yeah.
I mean, that movie has like a few different plot points where you're just like, oh, okay, I could suspend belief a little bit.
Okay. But now you're going, if it's animated, are you able to?
Yeah. Oh, animation's a whole other world.
All right. No. I'm getting there. I understand.
Yeah. But like as a good example, because the thing is like in any movie, you have to suspend belief a little bit for some things, right? Like, all right, I'll use Indiana Jones as an example, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark, or which is the one where like they open the thing and, you know, like don't look directly at it, it'll blind you. Is that Temple of Doom or
I don't remember
Last
which
Crusade,
one it is.
whatever. I don't know which one it is. Anyway, I wasn't a big Indiana Jones fan. It's not that I don't like Indiana Jones. It wasn't my first thing.
Also starring the first one, starring Ki Huang. Right?
Oh, that's
Isn't
right.
Key in that one? Yeah.
Was it the first one or was it the second one? I always forget which one.
I think it's the second one. I think we figured this out when we were hanging out, actually. It's the second one that he's in.
Well, because that's what it was. Because, again, they did the first one, which is just Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? It doesn't have Indiana Jones in the title. And then you get Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. They're like, oh, this is a cash cow, kids. Like, you know, like let's put a kid in there. So like the kiddies have someone to relate to. So it's Temple of Doom is the second one. I think, is that the one? I don't know. I'm going to stop guessing because this wasn't this is the opposite of my knowledge of like late night television is the Indiana Jones series. But my point to that is like, I remember going to see Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And Indiana Jones gets into a refrigerator and gets blown into like, with an atom bomb, or like the end of the movie, which, spoiler alert, it was aliens. Like everything else in the Indiana Jones universe is like sort of believable with like mild suspension of disbelief. But when your major plot point is like, oh, okay, you didn't warn me and I had to fully suspend belief for like your major plot point. So anyway, back to the Goonies. Is it possible that a treasure, like a pirate ship is like in this cave that no one is aware is there back in the 80s, in 80s technology and everything? Yeah, no, I think that's a plausible whatever. Now, lit up the way it is, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's fair. But do you know about the deleted scene? Because I think that would have ruined it for you.
With the octopus?
With the octopus.
Yeah.
Because then there's like a giant octopus under the water that like rips, what's her name? Stephanie? Is that her name in the show? Yeah. Rips Steph underwater. And then she, thinks she's in her mouth, and then it's an octopus and blah, blah, blah. And Data's there, and they deleted that scene. They deleted that whole octopus scene. But later on, when Data's being interviewed by
they left that
by
part
the thing, he talks about the octopus. And obviously, 5-year-old me never even knows what they're talking about. But like, it's a definite plot hole there, guys.
Oh, it's a plot hole. Yeah. I mean, because you're wondering like, because the whole point of that scene is,
what the hell are you talking about? Yeah.
The whole point of that scene is that they're saying all these things and the adults are like, wait, none of this is real, right? And then all of a sudden you hear about an octopus. You're like, where is there an octopus? Did I miss something? Or are they making up stories? So yeah, but I mean, even the way that because they blow up the rock, right, to try to get out of there, and then yada yada yada. All of a sudden the ship sort of escaped, because at that point it's like, all right, it's believable. Like what covered the cave or the rocks that were surrounding it ended up falling, and the anchor was lifted, so the thing went out, and it's just sailing by itself out in the sea. Just
I love that. But you know what else I love when I was doing research for this? The kids never saw the ship. They made it so that the kids never saw the ship until that day. Yeah, that they were going to film, and like their reactions were live. But I think it was Josh Brolin who curses a bunch, and they couldn't use the take because he's cursing so much.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like I don't want to make this up, but I feel like I heard somewhere in an interview somewhere that like Sean Astin or someone was like, yeah, some of the kids snuck a peek. Like it wasn't like,
oh yeah, the kids, I'm sure they did. Yeah, so I'm sure they did.
It was still set up that way. And I mean,
that's maybe a Chris Columbus thing, because in Harry Potter, he did the same thing. The Great Hall in Harry Potter, Chris Columbus had the set created so that the kids never saw it. So when the kids walked in for the first time, that was their first time seeing the Great Hall. So like all that awe and wonder that they captured on film was real. Like they had never seen it before. Bummer that, I mean, like I would be cursing too. I totally get it.
I have a fun fact for you.
I'm ready. I love fun facts.
Well, I mean, you're usually the one who gives them, but did you know, do you know Sloth's first name?
No.
Lotney.
Lotney
Fratelli. Lotney.
Poor baby Lotney. He was never going to get anywhere with that name. No
Sloth.
wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad. But another fun fact I'll throw at you that I loved was the nod to Jurassic Park. Do you know this part?
No.
So in Jurassic Park, Jerry, we love Jerry, big old chubby Jerry. His first shirt was a floral, like Tommy Bahama shirt. So is Chunks. Oh. And then he goes to a black t-shirt under a gray coat, which is exactly what Chunk does. And then at the end of the movie, he's wearing a yellow raincoat, just like Mikey's wearing at the end. Isn't that so cute?
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
That was their nod.
Something I never knew, but I'm going to point it out. And if she's working on this episode, our editor, Steph, spells her name, does like the same thing. Like her name is Stef, which is Martha Plimpton's character from the movie. So,
shout out Steph.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I never paid attention, but everyone has a nickname. It's Mikey, Brand, Chunk, Mouth, Data, Andy, and Steph.
I love that.
I mean, some of them are obviously like just shortened names of themselves, like Andy is Andrea.
Yeah.
Steph is just Stephanie.
Mikey is Mike. Yeah, I got it.
Mikey's Michael. Brandon is Brand. And then you have Chunk, Clark, Mouth, Devereaux. But yeah, they all have names. And the one thing we skipped over too is the whole concept of the movie, which I never understood. Is it like a mistake or what? But like, obviously you've heard of like the Boondocks, and these are
the Goondocks.
The Goondocks.
Yeah.
Which I never understood. That was the only part I never understood.
Yeah, I didn't get that one either. But it's I don't know. Yeah, I've read that too, and I was doing the research. But I think one of my favorite stories, like the Goonies lore and legend.
Yeah.
Sean Astin kept the prop map, which I think is the prop map. Yeah. Which is incredible, especially because the prop master put his own real blood on it because he thought it needed blood on it. And I guess the prop team was gone for the day. So he just cut himself and put blood on it, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But then Sean Astin took it at the end and brought it home, and his mom threw it away because she thought it was garbage.
What? Oh,
she threw it away because it was thrown out. And the entire pirate ship, they said anyone could take anything they wanted from it. Nobody wanted anything on it, and they scrapped the whole damn thing.
Jeez, I would have liked the balloon, which I mean,
a doubloon for the family. Yeah. But I just think that's so sad.
That is sad. That's insane. I feel
that made me sad. Also, we should probably talk about, and I don't remember if you remember seeing this. Do you remember the Cyndi Lauper song she wrote for the?
Oh my, yes, we got to talk about
Goonies are good enough. That music video is like 1 million hours long. First of all,
well, who's in it? I mean, that's the other part of it too.
It's okay. It is 12 minutes long, 2-part music video that features a cameo by Steven Spielberg. And it has a bunch of 80s wrestlers in it.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny. I mean, there's a few. I mean, the backstory to that too is like there's a bunch of Cyndi Lauper videos from the 80s that all she did a bunch of stuff with a bunch of the wrestlers and like WWF back in the 80s. But what I love about it too, like I was never that into wrestling, but honestly, I've gotten stuck on like wrestling TikTok. Like wrestling history TikTok, I should say.
I used to love wrestling in the 80s, like the early 90s. Yeah, I loved it.
I was never into it. I mean, again, I think like you almost like needed like an older brother or like a dad or someone to like get you into it or some influence or a cousin or something. I didn't have that. But I'm so enamored by that era of wrestling because you have like Rod Piper, the Iron Sheik, and Captain Lou, who also played Super Mario on the Super Mario Brothers TV show.
Yeah, that is so crazy.
Like it was great, but like Cyndi Lauper, there was like the Goonies are good enough, and I think was there another song she had on the soundtrack too? I don't remember. Oh, okay, maybe.
I just remember that, and like to me, I thought that music video was so fucking weird. Do you know about the Goonies Oath? And they cut it out of the movie.
No, what's the Goonies Oath?
I will never betray my Goondock friends. We'll stick together until the whole world ends. Through heaven and hell and the nuclear war, good pals like us will stick like tar. In the city or in the country or the forest of the boonies, I am proudly declare a fellow Goonie. I wish they would have kept that in. Do you know how many 35-year-olds and 36-year-olds would have that tattooed on their arm right now?
I mean, I feel like we should make a t-shirt that says
I think we need a t-shirt that says that. It's our Goondock merch dropping soon.
Oh man. But just 1 second, because I mentioned this in the beginning too. And I'm not crazy. There was the Goonies 2 video game that came out in 1987.
Okay.
For NES.
Oh.
I don't know anything about it, but it was like, it wasn't a good game. I should say that. I'll at least put that out there. But you know what's really funny? They recently announced that they're going to turn Harry Potter into a TV show. Am I breaking news to you, by the way? Did you not hear about this?
Okay, I heard it was The Cursed Child Or are they doing? Okay, wait.
They're rebooting it as a series, and they're going to make
who the
it.
Fuck? Who's going to play the children?
I mean, that's the part that sucks. Like, if you think about like the Goonies, like part of me is like, oh man, I would have loved more adventures in that world. But I mean, let's say they rebooted it today or try to do something with it today.
I don't know that I would hate it if they did it today.
They would have
if they were the parents.
Yeah, but they would have to stick to the world that Chris Columbus built and Richard Donner built.
I'm writing this as we speak. Okay, so they're the parents. Mm-hmm. They stayed in that town. They saved that town. They all opened small businesses. Now they have kids. They want to take their kids back to show them the ship because it's still there. The ship, or maybe something's there. Like, this is where the ship was because the ship's gone. And they go back down and they realize the ship has come back. And maybe something ensues.
Okay.
Maybe the Fratellis have kids that didn't get stuck in prison because the Fratellis all go to prison.
Yeah.
We got to write this right now.
I mean, with the exception of, well, actually, before I kill anybody accidentally, let me just double check. But I'm pretty sure, Joe Pantaleones is the only remaining alive person. Is that true?
Well, he can be the grandfather.
No, I inadvertently killed Robert Davi. Sorry, Robert.
Sorry about that.
But Anne Ramsey has definitely passed.
Oh, she's very dead.
Yeah,
she is. So dead. She is worm food as we speak.
Yeah.
But this would be a good time to do it because Key is killing it. I mean, Sean Astin coming off of Stranger Things. I think he's revived a bit. Josh Brolin's got that weird alien show happening and a voice that won't quit.
This is going to be really mean, but I'll say it anyway.
All right, go ahead.
You said, as you were saying, weird alien looking thing, I was looking at a picture of the guy who played Troy.
Oh no.
He's 64. But his Botox is a lot younger. So
okay, let's take a look at him. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's unfortunate.
I know. That's all right. That's all right.
He died before we shot this show. In my brain.
Some people
gone.
Just, they don't age well. Some people need a little help. Anyway, I'll leave it alone. I apologize. I apologize, Steve Anton, 64-year-old Steve Anton. But
Martha Plimpton had one hell of a career after this, though.
Yeah,
which I love because she really did.
Well, what's funny is in the 90s, a couple years later, I mean, she popped up in a bunch of movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
After that, she was in Parenthood, which was in '89. What else was she in? What else was she in, like the 80s? I mean, she's had a career. I'll give her a lot.
She really has. I feel like I randomly see her in things all the time. I'm like, oh, there's that lady whose name I can never remember.
Well, she was in Josh and Sam, that movie I brought up a while ago.
Okay. Yes.
If you remember.
That was 8A's. Okay, so she was
You had seen that movie, right?
Yes, I had seen that. And when I brought that up to my sister, I was like, do you remember this movie? She had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, well, I know I've seen it. I don't know where you were. Because we're Irish twins. She is like right after me. She was in Daybreak.
Yeah.
She was a TV movie. Inside Monkey Zetterland. I don't think that did well.
She had a career. She's had a career.
She sure did.
Yeah. And she's still stuck around. I give her a lot of credit there.
She's definitely like a C, maybe D level character. But I mean, I keep seeing her. She just keeps showing back up in shows.
Yeah.
I saw her, I'm pretty sure Grey's Anatomy, she had like a stint.
There was a TV show she was on a couple years ago on Fox. What was that? Do you remember?
On Fox?
Yeah. It was a comedy. It was from the guy who did
Brockmire?
No, it was from the same guy who did My Name is Earl. I forget the name of the show.
The Real O'Neills?
No. I'll find it real quick.
Raising Hope?
Raising Hope. There it is.
There he is.
Yeah. But
oh yeah, she was in there for 88 episodes.
Yeah. I didn't realize it lasted that long. Good for her.
She was in there deep. So maybe just back to the heart of the Goonies. No. We could do this all day. When I watch that movie, I just feel like it's one of those anything is possible movies. And I always say, I just feel like, but I do. This movie I feel that people in the 80s watch it, or they just connect to it. Like there's a definite age group that older than me, even older than you, that connects to it on such like it feels like home. It's one of those movies that I'm like, this is, if I were to show someone what my childhood felt like, it would be a movie like this. It felt like this.
Yeah. Well, you know what I give credit for too? Because we to that point, like, my kid's an actor. Mm-hmm. He's a budding actor trying to get involved in stuff.
I keep trying to convince him to be my best friend, but yeah, absolutely.
But if you rewatch this movie, first off, I'll just go rewatch this movie to anyone listening.
Please do.
But pay attention to when multiple kids are in scenes together, because when the kids are acting together with one another, they're so good. They're really good actors, and especially Data. Like, there are scenes when other kids are talking, and he's just like in the scene. And I'll give Richard Donner a lot of credit, right? There's called a twofer, right? Like, which is like just you have like two people in the same shot, right? Different than a oneer, which is like, that's we call different things. I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole here about filming terminologies, but you have a shot where like two characters are talking back and forth, and you cut between them. He does a lot of shots where it's like multiple kids are in the same shot, or they're having a conversation, and it very much brings me back to my childhood when you're all like standing around having conversations, just standing next to each other. And it doesn't look like it's a movie. Like, it looks like these kids are just hanging out together. And there's scenes when like they're just like paying attention to what the other are saying to each other, and they're engaged, which I know it's very subtle and it's very simple, but they sell it. And you feel like these kids are like best friends and grew up together, and like, this is another one of their adventures, maybe the biggest one they've ever had, but it's an adventure for these kids. And beyond that too, just like, being a kid, like, I don't know if, I had this growing up in New York City. I don't know if you had it too, but like, there would be parts where like you had like your little cliques of friends. We had it like per block. Like, our block was one group of friends, and the block over had another group of friends. And there was like, sometimes there was intermingling, right? Where it's like, oh, this group of people are going to hang out with this group. And it was, not like the way it occurred was very much how like Andy and Steph like fold into the group all of a sudden. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we all know each other.
Yeah.
Like, we're all from the neighborhood. And I love that. Like, I love how organic they all just like, oh yeah, we all know each other. Like, Andy knows Mikey, and like, they're all just familiar with each other from the neighborhood.
Agreed. Yeah, that's how it was for us. We didn't live on a block. We lived on a street, but everyone on my street would come to my house because I had a big yard.
Yeah.
And we would, it was the same feeling. And like, if somebody brought a friend, that's not part of the group, it was like, I know you from the bus.
Yeah.
I know you from the bus. I did look it up when we were talking before, because you brought up how good Data is, and he was in Temple of Doom the year before in 84. Yeah. So I feel like maybe he had a little bit more acting chops under his belt. Yeah. But like, Corey Haim and Sean Astin, they were in quite a few things before this, right?
Oh, was it before it?
I don't mean Feldman.
That
I'm sorry.
I'm
Corey
actually
Haim
asking Corey Feldman and Corey Haim.
Feldman.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in Mork and Mindy in 78.
Oh, wow.
He was on The Bad News Bears in 79.
Yeah.
Time After Time in 79. So Facts and the Hound in 81. Friday the 13th. I feel like he's been in some things.
Yeah. I do love a lot of his movies.
And then, Stand By Me's in 86. So I feel like that's kind of the way it went for him. I mean,
yeah.
I truly loved him in the 80s. Like, he was any of the Coreys. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Stand
on
By Me,
Corey.
Lost Boys, License to Drive.
Lost Boys. That's probably, ask your wife if that's why her and I are obsessed with vampires. Well, no, she wouldn't have been able to watch that, but I was.
No, she wasn't allowed.
I was.
She wasn't allowed. There wasn't a Disney movie.
You got to show her that for date night one night. Just get her a little sauced up and be like, I'm going to show you the original vampire.
I mean, I did
Vampire
love License
Boys.
to Drive. That movie is great.
That was a really good one.
So.
Oh, and he was in Gremlins. Duh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And that was 84. Well, shit.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. How did you feel? And I feel like it was maybe 2000s, late teens, 2000s. Goonies had this resurgence in merch. Like, out of nowhere. Maybe because our age group finally had money. But like, I'm serious. I remember going into Hot Topic and being like, oh my God, I love this Goonies shirt. And then all of a sudden everybody was wearing Goonies merch.
Yeah, there must have been like some pointed reason it resurged, because I was going to say it wasn't like a 20th anniversary or anything. We were still a few years away from that. Because this came out, like we said it before, it's 85. So
how much did it gross? Do you know that? Because it had to have done very well at the box office, right?
I don't know. I actually don't know if it did well in the box office at all, actually.
I think it's in my notes. Let me not be lazy and look at the notes that I actually spent hours writing.
I would like to know why it only has a 76% Rotten Tomatoes score.
Because those people are fucking heathens. That's why. Because they also, there's plenty of times that Rotten Tomatoes has done me dirty. I will say that. Do you go by that? Because I live in a household where constantly I'm like, do you want to watch this? And they're like, well, the ratings aren't very good. I'm like, well, I don't care. That man is very attractive and he doesn't wear a shirt in it. I see it on the poster. So we're watching it.
So you base it on something even worse. You're just like, well, how attractive is the poster?
Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Okay. I don't know. I can't find it. I thought I had it in my notes. It was in the 100 area. It's like 124 million, I think.
I like this quote. It says, Variety called it, quote, a dangerous Disneyland sort of film stamped with the Steven Spielberg style of high fun.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah. That's pretty spot on. Okay, here we go. The film was a box office success.
Okay.
It grossed over $124 million against a $19 million budget. The responses were pretty positive. Even Roger Ebert said that it was a fantastical story of buried private treasure told with a slice of life approach that lets kids use words Bogart didn't know in Casablanca.
Yeah.
All right. That's a pretentious way to say it was a good movie, but no. Okay. This is my fun fact. And since we're coming towards the end, I want to share it.
Yeah.
This is one of those lore legends that people attach to this movie.
Oh, no.
So Back to the Future and the Goonies are set on the same day.
What?
Yeah. October 26th. And the way that people prove this is they talk about it happening on a Saturday and they hold up a newspaper that the Fratellis are in from 2 days before. And that's October 24th. And Back to the Future happens on October 26th. So it's kind of goes back to that Gremlins theory where all of these things happen in the Steven Spielberg universe on the same day.
Huh.
I liked that one.
The movie started filming October 22nd, 1984.
Oh shit.
So it began filming what 4 days before that marked date. So
yeah, that big day was October 26th.
So feasible. And I want to say because time is so connected to it, when did I want to say, and I'm going to double check this as we're looking at it. We're talking about it.
I have another one for you to tie into this, but continue your question. It'll all go together. I believe it.
Well, I was going to say, does Back to the Future, see, this is what's weird though, is like, he has to get back to what year is he trying to get back to?
Oh my God. I feel very on the spot because I have no fucking idea. I do not remember. We need to do Back to the Future, but I do not remember. I need a refresher.
Well, it's October 26th, 1980. Is it 4 or 5?
Well, they must have shot this in 84.
Right. That's what I mean.
So then maybe he's getting back to 84. Now, to tie that in more to the Gremlins thing, it's made to set place within the same universe as the Gremlins. So when Chunk calls the police and tells about what's like, remember when he like calls and says everything that's happening with the Fratellis? Yes. Okay. So the officer on the other end of the line is like, aren't you the kid that called in about the little creatures that multiply when you put water on them? And like, that's another call that Chunk made. So like it's the same universe, same timeline as all those movies. Isn't that so wild?
That is. By the way, I did find the answer. It was 1985. Okay. So so if all of this takes place October 26, 1985, is it on the same day and the same day and year and everything, like day, like
it's supposed to be
history,
everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but why is June 7th Goonies Day? That's another thing in my note.
June 7th is
Goonies Day in Astoria, Oregon, where this was shot. Why June 7th?
Why June 7th?
I don't know. I have no idea. We must find this out.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but like the house, Mikey's house, still exists.
I just saw a TikTok about this literally this morning.
Yeah.
It was a girl standing outside with her daughters. Like she brought them there for that.
I was going to say, I don't know if anything has changed, but I know like, I mean, almost famously, it's like the house from Breaking Bad that the owner of the house is an insane person. And but like, I think my understanding, at least, unless something has changed, that the owners of Mikey's house are like, you can come, but be respectful. And like, you can't park on the little road that their house is on or whatever, but you can just walk up to it and you're okay. I don't know if that's still the case.
We have to go to Astoria, Oregon now because the movie came out on June 7th. That's why it's Goonies Day.
Oh, okay.
And they have a whole weekend of events. I'm looking at the schedule of events.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh, what an adventure this is. Oh, wow. They've got set passes. Wow, they really did this deep.
I think
this would really underwhelm us if we went.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I mean, and then the other thing too, as far as like going to visit their Astoria, Oregon, the Oregon Film Museum is what was the jail that they escaped from.
Oh yes, that must be the museum. I was just looking at the lovely photos of.
I believe last time I saw it, like the Fratelli's Jeep is still parked out front too.
Well, that's amazing.
Bullet holes the size of meatballs. Was that what it was the size of? Did I get that quote right? Or
I love it was a Sean Astin interview that I was watching when I was doing my research, and he improvised the entire story that he tells the cops about the Fratellis.
Does he
really? Telling the story about the Fratellis. He improv that entire thing. And it's like one of my favorite like manic little kid moments, right? Like he's just like, which is exactly how you'd be if whenever you and your siblings got into some trouble or you and your friends got into some trouble and you were telling your parents about it. You're like a manic tiny human just spewing everything. And another thing I saw is Chunk had chicken pox when this movie was filming, but he didn't want to lose the role. So if you look at the scene where he first does the truffle shuffle, he has chicken pox all over his stomach.
Jeez, the poor kid.
I know, poor kid.
That poor kid. Well, I mean, he's a lawyer now, so
he is a lawyer, and I bet you he's
attorney
making
to the stars. Yeah, I will say, I'm not the only one who's kind of clamored. And again, just to be clear, there's a lot of movies where I'm like, don't ever touch it, don't ever leave Back to the Future alone. We don't need a sequel. We don't need a series. It is what it is. Because I think it's not about like the car, right? It's about Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and their characters there. Like you can't go back there. Like don't do it. It's too sad. I would be okay if there was some sort of like Goonies spin-off or something. But again, that's not hard to do. And maybe it's also better off we just don't. But interesting enough, there was a pilot for a show that would be a shot-for-shot remake. It's about a woman helping film students create a shot-for-shot remake of the Goonies. Richard Donner was behind it. Everyone was behind it. And then Fox didn't move forward on it. But apparently it actually is in development now as a TV series for Disney Plus called Our Time. So I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I mean, that sounds actually insanely interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is one of those situations where selfishly I would love for the story to continue, but it's just so perfect. It's timeless. It was made in when? 85?
Yeah.
How many movies from then are kids still watching today and enjoying? Like barely any, because there's no, I think it's really hard to grab a kid's attention now. Like there's anything they want to watch is right there. They can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're like, this is just, I don't know. Has there been another movie like this?
like kid adventure like that.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that.
Spy Kids, maybe, right? That was the 90s.
But that, like, again, that's what was cool. What made this movie cool was it was about your everyday average kids who, like, play outside, ride their bikes around the neighborhood, who got into this fantastical adventure. Spy Kids is not that. And funny enough, like, there are these smaller movies. Like, there's this random movie that I put on my son's, like, list of movies to watch, but from when I was a kid, wasn't necessarily a popular one either, called The Paper Brigade. Which if you look it up, you might have seen it because it was like an HBO kind of thing, or maybe Showtime or something when I was a kid. But there aren't a lot of movies like this, which is also kind of funny because Hollywood tends to copy paste a lot. And so if something is successful, they're like, oh, let's just make another knockoff of that. There weren't any real Goonies knockoffs that I can remember. And maybe I'm wrong. And if someone remembers one out there.
You're 100% right. And like, I just kind of, for conversation's sake, just looked up movies similar to the Goonies, and every single one of them was made in the 80s. Like literally every single one.
Yeah.
And Monster Squad, which I know you haven't seen. I cannot believe you haven't seen. Oh, it's so good. I don't think you'll like it because you're not into that fantastical stuff. But if you love it for like the 80s ridiculousness that it is, I think you'll like it. But like Neverending Story, Stand By Me, Labyrinth, E.T., Hook. Those are ones similar to Goonies. Yeah. Where I feel like maybe, I don't know. I think you're right. I don't think anything's ever done this, or at least done it so well that it's notable.
And it's funny too, because, there's been movies that follow a group of kids like that age doing stuff or whatever, like Stand By Me, right? But that's a drama, right? That's based off a
really
Stephen
dark
King novel.
Yeah, that is not a kid's movie.
Yeah, not that, right? And it is funny because I'm looking up the same list you are. I'm just like, there's nothing similar.
I was gonna say Now and Then, but there is not a single fantastical element to that. Like that is really just a coming of age story for women.
Yeah.
It's set in the 70s. Like it's just a very different thing.
Yeah.
In the 90s, you kind of had, I mean, like, I guess we could say Harry Potter, right? Because that's the same thing. Like, these like rough and tumble things, but that's really, that's another end of the spectrum where it's so fantastical that like, it's not like they're run of the mill kids,
Yeah. Well, but what I was going to say too is like, I think what's interesting is like, the last time I remember a movie with like a cast of like just a few kids getting into trouble or whatever was Good Boys, which was the 2019 movie, which I think it was like produced by Seth Rogen produced by Seth Rogen. But it's like rated R and it's made to be like an adult comedy about kids. It's not supposed to be a movie for kids. Yeah. I mean, to the point, like there's nothing out there that matches the Target demo and everything else that you want from like a Goonies knockoff. I would have been fine with a bunch of Goonies knockoffs.
I just remembered as you're saying that, because what about like those Nickelodeon 90s movies? I feel like we had a little bit there, like Snow Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like Harriet the Spy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they kind of had that little element of adventure where it wasn't so fantastical that you were in another world. But Nickelodeon, I feel like, had that on lock.
My all-time, you're almost there.
Okay.
My all-time favorite Nickelodeon show of all time is Pete and Pete.
Same. We've talked about this. Yeah. I fucking love that show.
But that's it, right? Because I mean, you take that and it's exactly that, right? It's kids riding their bikes, playing in the neighborhood, right? They're neighborhood kids with like little elements of like, Artie, the strongest man in the world, or like, like little fantastical things, little bits. But it's done in a way where it doesn't suspend, like they're still just kids. And you can argue like, one of the more popular ones was like the flashlight tag episode where, little Pete doesn't want to go to bed. And he's like, I don't want to have a bedtime. And he ended up like, oh, you can stay up all night. And he just didn't sleep for several nights in a row. Like that's an adventure for a kid, is like that summertime. I'm going to stay up all night and, no bedtime and play tag until, whenever, like those little kid adventures, like, and I don't know if maybe the world has changed, like dark now, but like, I don't know if the world has changed so much that like, that's just not what kids go through anymore. And it's a little bit different, but like, what I liked about that world too was it was similar in like tone where like it was that weird thing where like there was no time period to that show, right? Like Artie's walking around with like a transistor radio on his belt that's like playing like polka music, right? Like there was it wasn't grounded in like, oh, we're in the 90s. Here's a guest star or a band to prove that we're here in the 90s. Like it was timeless. It was written timeless. And so even to a certain extent, I would say the same thing about, the Goonies almost. Like that could have been the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Who knows? The only reason you can peg some TV shows or movies for what time period they're in is just because the existence of like cell phones or computers or things. But beyond
even the
that,
cars and the back shots, I feel like that's usually where my brain goes. It's like, oh, that's an 80s car if I've ever seen one, or, this must be set in the 50s because, that's a wood knocker. Yeah. Like you just see certain things in the background that I think you associate with time. But my family was poor. We had those 80s cars well into the 2000s. Yes. So
yeah, no, I agree. I was the same boat, but that was the thing. But yeah, you picked up on something too, is like, I think, and I can go on a rant about my feelings about Nickelodeon and their pseudo downfall and all this other stuff. Is it bad?
Because I was a Nickelodeon kid. I feel like the rich kids were Disney kids. I was a Nickelodeon kid. Well, that was the thing is like, I don't know if I said this on this podcast, but like Disney Channel, even when it was like a paid, like an HBO premium channel kind of thing before they made it free, was a family channel. Nickelodeon was like a channel that felt like it was made by kids behind the scenes. Like agreed.
It was very much connected to the zeitgeist of being a kid. And even the game shows and everything they did was super connected to that. And they lost that. Now they just lean into like we're the channel with, like the Loud House and reruns of
I'm so
SpongeBob.
Not connected to that world because I don't have kids or anything like that. But
yeah,
I feel like you touched on something really important. And then maybe it's just that little bit of fantastical nature was maybe more so like when you're a little kid, not going to bed for 3 days is a fantasy, you know? So like these things aren't actually not real things, but they become like, the strongest man, like when we talk about Artie, strongest kid in the world. Yeah. In your head, when you're a little kid, the kid that can lift, those things, that is the strongest kid in the world. So now that person becomes superhuman to you.
Yes.
So you've created the fantasy where it's just like a regular kid.
Oh, I love
and so, that. Yeah. And I feel like Nickelodeon did that very well. And I also feel like there's I loved Disney movies. Don't get me wrong. My sister and I could go on. We could have just a podcast on rewatching 90s Disney movies because we were obsessed. But to us, we grew up as Nickelodeon kids. And I still to this day, I think if a Nickelodeon magazine commercial came on TV, I would be reminded how poor we were as children. I wanted nothing more in my life than a subscription to Nickelodeon magazine. But I feel like the Goonies kind of laid the groundwork for that. Like the Goonies was like, if the Goonies came out when Nickelodeon was like really thriving, it would have been on an orange VHS. It would have been a Nickelodeon movie.
Yeah. But there was something there too, is like, I don't know what it was or why, it's like right now with like superhero movies and stuff, like they're just like, oh, enough already. Like another superhero, it's like, why didn't we get that back then? Because to your point, like if you think about all the live action Nickelodeon shows, you had Pete and Pete, Clarissa Explains It All.
Oh my God, I wanted to be her so
Clarissa.
Badly.
Yeah.
Her clothes. Are you fucking kidding me? I should have known I was going to be a skateboard kid because like her clothes. Oh my God, she was so cool.
Yeah. But that was the thing is like, but there was a certain connection because that's what it was, is it's connecting the dots between like what life as a kid is like. And the term I was thinking of like when you were talking is it's like, you ever watch like Jerry Seinfeld stand up?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, especially like his which was around 99 or 98, I want to say. He did like, I'm Telling You for the Last Time. It was right after like the peak Seinfeld ended. And then he was like, I'm going to do my bits. And he had like things in there, like talking about like dressing up for Halloween as a kid. We had like the plastic Superman, like the Superman outfit with the cape and then the plastic Superman mask that would like cut into your eyelids. And the thing is, it was like, it's that very simple observations about being a kid that I, as a kid, loved so much because it was like seeing my world represented on TV. And there weren't superheroes. They weren't fantastical. It was just like the little like things to your point about like the strongest kid in the neighborhood or whatever, like that kind of stuff. And was bringing it there. And so, you know, I actually enjoy going back to the whole point of this podcast is when you watch the beginning of the Goonies, like when the opening credits where it's kind of showing all the kids around town and it's very quick. And because no one hangs around for like the opening credits a lot, you kind of skip over it real quick. But you know, Steph, for instance, like we see her, like apparently her family works down by the docks and like they're like fishermen or whatever. And she's like pulling crabs or like dunking for crabs in a barrel or whatever. And just like what the kids are like doing around town and all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. I think that's great. And yeah, we didn't get enough of that as a kid. We didn't get enough of that as kids. And nowadays, I don't even know if kids are even getting a connection to that. They don't see themselves represented there.
No. And it's funny because when I watch this, I remember watching this for the first time. It was daytime TV, and I am such a lucky person. I will just go on record saying that because anyone related to me listening to this or any friend I have listening to this knows my parents divorced. And while their divorce was not perfect, what divorce is, it got as perfect as it could fucking be. My parents were best friends. They said we were best friends that had kids. We're staying best friends. Every spouse they had to know that they were best friends. Yeah. We have literally done every holiday together my entire life. Yeah. So I've never known what it's truly like to be a divorced kid. But I remember watching this in which ended up being my mom's house, which was owned by my grandparents, watching this on a Saturday afternoon, like on the couch by myself because my mom was a nurse who worked overnights and my younger sister was, you know, younger doing something like playing with my grandparents. And I was all by myself. And like, I know that you've said that a lot. Like you were, you know, your siblings a lot older than you. You were by yourself watching a lot of this TV. Yeah. And I remember being so sucked into this movie and just like making it my entire personality. Like after I watched this movie, I was like, I can find treasure. But it was also like the first time I'd ever seen kids like go through life on TV. Yeah. They weren't just kids whose moms woke them up at 7 a.m. with a fucking 7-course breakfast on the table, which was so prominent on TV at the time. Yeah. That was not my mom. My mom was like, do you want cereal? Yeah. You don't want cereal? Then you're not eating something because I have 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs at the time. And I feel like this was one of the first times that as a kid going through shit who didn't just have like a normal cookie cutter home life, you truly saw yourself on TV like, oh, there are so many different types of people. And I think you're right. I mean, what do you see on TV now for kids? Yeah.
They have a lot of kids sitcoms. And that's the thing too. It's like sitcoms where like they're not where it's like,
I'm so weirded out by TV geared towards children now. Yeah. I have a niece and nephew and my niece loves watching these like people on YouTube who are like, I have 2 older nephews who are in the, you know, teenage years. One's 18, one's like much older, 16. But like the children ones, like, why are we watching a grown man in a room in his house created to look like a fire station opening up Barbie dolls? Yeah. Why is this what's
is that still a thing?
Yes, it's so weird. Like it is so strange where I'm like, this is not what we had to watch. We had like humans to watch. I don't know. It's very strange. I feel like television towards kids. Yes, exactly. Bill Nye, Mark Summers. Oh, what would you do? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like TV now towards kids is so strange. And I also feel like there's like a, maybe a camaraderie or like a companionship that we feel with people that watch the Goonies of our age period. The whole Goonies never say die. Yeah. I feel like we all lived our lives by that.
That's what, you know what, I mentioned it before, but I'll reiterate it in a different way. It's the way all the kids are connected and we don't have to have a giant introduction to like spoon feed us. Like these kids are friends. They know each other from the neighborhood or whatever. It's just like, this is just how it is. Like this is the world they built. And I love, if you can tell from other episodes we've done, like I love world building, and I love when movies or TV shows like build a world around the main plot or the characters. And that's why I said I give so much credit to Richard Donner, because I think he did such an amazing job building this world of Astoria, Oregon, and all these kids and living in the Goondocks and, you know, just living life. And then all of a sudden falling into this thing where they want to, like, you know, rescue their family.
I don't know. I agree. And I feel like also I feel like some kids innately have that in them, that they feel like they always have to help the people around them and save the people around them, even though they're young and they're helpless. And I felt like that, like when I was a little kid, and I always felt like, oh, I have to save my family. I have to, you know, I don't want my mom to work 3 jobs. How can I make money as a little kid, you know? And I feel like little kids truly do feel like that. And this was one of those movies where, like, you saw it was possible. These kids wanted to save their parents' homes, and they just hand out gems.
Yeah.
And doubloons to their family, like, here you go. House
there was no
fine. Leave me alone.
There was no greed at the end. Like, even when they found everything, they were like, "Oh, he saved us." Yeah,
yeah. And I don't know. That was very beautiful, especially watching this back as an adult. It's really such a wonderful story about, like, the innocence of childhood, how important your childhood friends were, and how there was a time where kids were just. They could be kids in whatever world they created for themselves. And it was just so 80s. It was like perfectly 80s.
Perfectly 80s.
Perfectly 80s.
Cool. All right. So recommend, is that what you were saying about this?
Yeah. Goonies never say die. Ever.
Goonies never say die. We got to find that. We got to post that quote somewhere. We'll hand it over to our social media person to, like, post up that.
She's very pretty.
What's it? What was it? The mantra? No, what was it? The Goonies?
Oh, they're. I'll send it. Yeah. The Goonies oath. It was cut.
The oath. Yeah.
Come on. How was it cut?
Right. Find it on our. You can find it on our social media. We'll post it.
Yeah, we'll post it. And I also just want to say, for the people that have not seen the Goonies and have listened to this episode, first of all, what are you doing in your life? But second of all, you can't watch this movie and at the end of it not feel good. It's so feel good. It's got everything. Probably a better thing to point to is for the parents out there who have young kids now. Yeah. Remember to show your kids the Goonies, because I feel like there's like better.
You know, actually, it's really funny. I remembered another one, and we'll do this in another episode.
Okay,
but to connect the dots in like a group of kid friends. But again, it was around baseball. It was like the Sandlot.
Oh God, how did we forget about that one? The Sandlot. Yeah. Hercules, the dog. He was like, might as well be a monster, and the poor thing's just I don't know what he is, maybe like a some type of dog. One thing that is very funny that I forgot about until the end of this, Jeff Cohen, who plays Chunk, when he ran for president in college, all of his slogans and posters said "Chunk for president," and he won. Shocker.
Of course he did.
Wouldn't
you hate to be the kid who's running
Berkeley.
against
I think
Chunk?
It was at UC Berkeley. Yeah. I think it's so funny.
Imagine being the person who's like, God damn, I'm running against Chunk from the Goonies.
I am not going to win.
No way I'm winning this.
I hope you wore a Hawaiian shirt the whole time.
Man, I think I want to go buy a Hawaiian shirt. By the way, they are expensive. Have you ever browsed around Tommy Bahama?
My old boss used to exclusively wear Tommy Bahama. I'm like, these shirts are like $100 a piece. How do you have 90 of them?
Because the patterns are so complicated.
Shout out to Kevin Cook. May he rest in peace. But
by the way, that's a reference you have yet to get because you haven't watched I Think You Should Leave, which
I know I need to. Yeah, I will do it. Right now we're finishing up Barry. So hold on to your hats, people. We are I'm plowing through Barry.
We're revealing a little bit of like other episodes we're working on, but they're coming. We have plans in place. And we're actually, and it's funny too, because we're planning out our episodes. By the way, just off topic, the episode over kind of thing for the listeners. But like, if you guys can't tell hearing me, like I lost my voice. I'm not just a different person sitting here. And
I like it. It's husky.
It's more sensual, I think.
Yeah, I think it's sexy. You could be like Adam Carolla right now. Wasn't that the sex show? Okay.
Podcast? I was like, has anyone ever said Adam Carolla's voice is sexy? I don't know.
He was on the sex podcast with Dr. Drew.
Dr. Drew. Loveline. Yeah.
Loveline. Oh,
we should recreate that. Neither of us are doctors or anything, but
I think I would give great advice. Man, did I tear through my 20s.
We were planning things out, and it seems like our first season of this podcast will wrap up around like 24 episodes, like a TV show from back in the day before there were only 10 episodes. So
pansies.
Yeah, but we have season 2 is like a week after that, so don't worry.
And do we drop there's we're gonna do a little adventure in May. I think we may have mentioned it on another episode a while back.
Yeah, season 2 is gonna open with some exciting stuff, a whole month.
Yes.
Hope you're into something. We'll tell you soon. Don't worry.
We'll tell you. Check the socials. It'll be on there.
Anyway, yeah, we should promote those more. We have stuff like we're giving away T-shirts and all these things.
We have
to
merch, guys.
We have merch. Yeah.
Head over to our Instagram, and we're on the Tick and the Talk.
Oh wow!
And we're on the Book of Faces, and we're always giving shit away.
Yeah. To be clear, other podcasts we have merch, and it's like, give us your money. That's what they're really asking. We're just giving shit away.
We're giving you our money.
Yes. We spent money on stuff. We have a budget for this stuff, but
head on over.
Yeah. Anyway, good talk. I love.
Guys. Goonies never say die.
Goonies never say die. See you next time.
Bye.